thanks for listening into this talk, which is about looking after your well-being. I'm Sophie and I'm a wellbeing practitioner in the Someone to Talk to team at Centre 33, involved in our guided self-help support offer. So let's make a start on the topic today. So we're going to start off talking about what we actually mean by the word well-being, and then the things which can have both a negative and a positive impact on our mental well-being. Then we will talk through a few key areas that can have a positive impact, so around sleep, self-care, relaxation exercises, and staying connected. We then talk a bit about well-being specifically at the start of a new year, because we know that the new year can be a tricky time for many people. And we're going to share with you a strategy to introduce helpful habits in a manageable way. We'll then finish off the talk by making you aware of other services, both local and national, that can provide support, and also reminding you about the support that you can get at Centre 33 and how you can get in touch with us. So what do we actually mean by well-being? Well-being is quite a broad term that people use in different ways and in different contexts, but it generally refers to our sense of health and happiness and quality of life. It's not something people either have or don't have. It exists on a scale and it's subjective to how people feel. It's often used alongside the term mental health, but there can also be other types of well-being, such as physical well-being, financial, social, educational or occupational well-being, societal and spiritual well-being, to name a few others. But today we're going to be focusing on mental and emotional well-being. So there are lots of different things that can affect our well-being, not only having mental health issues. Other things could include stresses or pressures that we experience in life, whether around education, our home life, whether around family or peers or anything else that's going on. Experiencing difficult life events, whether that's a singular event or that's something that's more ongoing, can also impact on our mental well-being, as can things that are going on around us in society or in the wider world. Problems in relationships and friendships can also have an effect, as can experiencing things such as discrimination or marginalisation. Some of the things that have a negative impact, we can have some control over changing, but there are often things that we might not be able to control. However, there are things that we can actively do to look after ourselves and try and support our mental well-being. As you can see on the screen, there's a number of different things that we can all do, such as trying to eat a healthy, balanced diet and making sure we're drinking plenty of water, keeping active in whatever way works best for us, making sure that we make time for our hobbies and our interests, helping other people or volunteering, and trying out new things. Asking for help is also an important one. While moods and mental health do go up and down, and that's perfectly normal, we would always encourage people to reach out for support if things were starting to feel unmanageable or overwhelming, or if unpleasant feelings aren't going away. The areas of well-being we're going to talk about in a bit more detail are the ones underlined on the screen that I just previously mentioned, but around sleep, self-care, relaxation, and connecting with others. So sleep plays an essential role in supporting and maintaining good physical and mental well-being. It gives a chance for our bodies and minds to rest, to repair, to recharge, and to protect us. And current research suggests that young people need around 8 to 10 hours of sleep a day, and for adults 7 to 9. Not getting enough sleep not only affects our energy levels, causing us to feel tired throughout the day, but it can also affect other things such as our memory and our concentration spans, our physical health and our immune system, our mood and mental health, and also how resilient we are to coping with stresses or problems we may face. So hopefully you can see just how important sleep is, so getting enough sleep and getting good quality sleep. And you can see the real difference it can make to how we feel and to what we feel able to do. So on the slide here are some key tips that we feel can help to improve sleep. So the first thing is to check your environment. So is the room a comfortable temperature? Is there too much light or noise keeping you awake or disturbing you throughout the night? Are your bed and your pillows, are they comfy to lie on? Try to keep your bed just for sleeping. If we do other things in bed like schoolwork, watch TV or play games, Our brains may no longer associate bed just with sleeping, but perhaps start to associate it with other more energizing activities, which might make it harder for our brains to wind down and for us to start feeling tired at night. Try to avoid smoking or taking other substances in the hours before bed, and that's because they often contain chemicals which can disrupt the relaxation process and that balance of hormones that we need to get to sleep. Similarly, try to avoid having large meals just before bed, and sugar, caffeine and alcohol in the hours in the run-up to going to sleep as well. If you want to have something, try a warm or milky drink before going to sleep to help you relax. Something else that might help is to make a list of any worries or any tasks that are on your mind. It's quite common for our minds to turn to focusing on worries or things that we need to get done the next day when we're trying to get to sleep. So writing these things down can be a helpful way to take them off of our minds for the time being so that we can get to sleep. And then perhaps you could look back at the list the next day if needed. We know it's quite common for young people to be told to stop using phones or other technology before bed, and we know that that can be difficult to do. But we also know that for many people, having a gap between being on a screen and going to sleep can help them to unwind and help them to get off to sleep quicker. So rather than simply saying stop going on your phones or consoles, we'd encourage you to think about trying to increase the gap between turning them off and closing your eyes. And lastly, it might help to plan in kind of a winding down activity each evening before you go to sleep. So that could be reading a book, listening to some calming, gentle music or a podcast, or doing some drawing or colouring. Our top tip for you would be to create a pre-sleep and a sleep routine and to get into the habit of doing that at the same time each day. So now we're going to talk about self-care, but what does self-care actually mean? We see self-care as any activity that we intentionally do in order to take care of our physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual health. Practicing self-care is a really good way to look after yourself and your mental well-being. As you can see from the quote on screen there, it has been clinically proven to reduce or eliminate anxiety and depression, reduce stress, improve concentration, minimize frustration and anger, increase happiness, improve energy, and much more. So I think self-care has become associated with certain things like relaxation and pampering and bubble baths. And while for many people that's exactly what they need to unwind and to look after themselves, we wanted to just say that self-care isn't just one thing. It will look different for everybody. And what someone needs to look after themselves is also likely to change depending on the situation, on how they're feeling, and on what's going on around them. So there are many different ways that people might practice self-care, and there's no right or wrong way of doing it. These things tend to be very personal to each individual, but it could include activities that are calming or relaxing, such as creating a playlist of gentle music, having a warm shower, doing a mindfulness or relaxation exercise. Activities that are comforting, so perhaps you could look back through happy photos on your phone, remind yourself of positive memories, having a cuddle with a pet, or having a chat with a close friend or family member. Self-care could also be something energizing, like going for a run, having a kickabout in the garden or the park, or dancing along to your favorite songs. Uplifting activities could include watching that film that always makes you laugh or makes you feel good afterwards, making a list of things that you're looking forward to in the future or things that you're grateful for, or reading positive news stories. Motivating activities could include tidying or sorting things in your room, creating a short to-do list and working your way through it, ticking things off as you go, or perhaps helping someone out with something. And self-care activities could also be something creative, so doing arts or crafts, making music, dancing, writing, inventing something. Like I say, there's no right or wrong way to practice self-care. It's all about finding what works for you and what's most helpful. So we wanted to share with you 2 key exercises now that can help with relaxation and can particularly help to calm stressed or anxious feelings. The first activity is calm breathing, and there are lots of different ways to practice calm breathing. They all generally involve taking slow, deep and gentle breaths in and out. On screen here is a more sensory version that involves tracing around your hand with your other finger, breathing in slowly as you move up each finger. So you can see the arrows on the screen here, perhaps pausing at the top of the finger, and then gently breathing out as you draw down the finger. The idea behind this is to help to slow down your heart rate and your breathing back to a steady, calm and gentle pace. And focusing on each breath you take can also help to calm a worried and overwhelmed mind. The second activity on the right there is called grounding, and this is all about using your senses to refocus your attention on the things around you. It can help to take your mind away from worries or unpleasant physical symptoms you're experiencing that often might be associated with stress or anxiety. It can also be a good exercise to do before bed as a way of winding down. So the activity on screen involves using each of your 5 senses to identify things around you that you can see, touch, hear, smell and taste. But you could also choose one or a couple of senses to do this activity. So for example, looking around you and trying to find everything in the room that's blue or everything that's got a square in it, or going through the alphabet and finding an object that starts with each letter. And the last area of wellbeing that we wanted to talk about today is staying connected and the real benefit that this can have for us. So being around other people can help to boost our mood. It can help us to feel connected to the wider world. Connections with the right people can take us from perhaps feeling lonely or isolated to feeling accepted and feeling like we've got a sense of belonging. Relationships with others can provide us with meaning and understanding and support. And talking to others can help us sometimes to untangle knots in our minds and help us to process and make sense of things that we're thinking about or things that are going on. It can also help us to know that we're not alone with our feelings and circumstances, and that there are people who are perhaps going through similar situations to ourselves. Connecting with others can also be a way to enjoy mutual interests and have fun and positive experiences. So we'd encourage everyone to think about how you can keep connected to the people in your lives and perhaps any other connections that you could look to make that would have a positive impact on how you feel. So we wanted to talk now about well-being in the context of the new year. Because as I said, we're aware that the new year or a changing year can be a tricky time for many people. It often prompts us to reflect on things in the past, perhaps things that did or didn't happen over the past year, things that we did or didn't achieve, and also think about things that are coming up in the future, whether that's over the next year or longer. While some people may find this a useful process and may well reflect on positive things, for others this might be a bit more uncomfortable and might bring up some difficult feelings. If you can identify with that, we wanted to let you know that it's okay if you're feeling that way, and it's okay if you find the new year a tricky time. You won't be the only one. And also to acknowledge that coping and getting through the year, and particularly the last year during the pandemic, is a huge achievement in itself, and it's something that's really worth recognising and perhaps might be helpful to remind yourself of if you're feeling anxious about anything in the year ahead. So while focusing on achievements can be one way to boost mood and to feel positive about yourself, we'd also encourage people to think about their strengths and their qualities as well as another way to look after well-being. So perhaps a bit of a takeaway task for you all to do is to think about and to write down 2 strengths and 2 good qualities about yourself. Just start with 2 for now, but try to keep adding to this list, as that list could then become a really lovely thing to look back at to boost confidence and mood. There are some prompts on the screen there, thinking about these things, such as what am I good at? What do other people say they like about me? What's a time I did something kind? What can I do well? What's a time I did something even though it was hard? What have other people thanked me for? Or what's something challenging that I've coped with or overcome? So there can be pressure in the new year to set resolutions around making big changes in lifestyle. And while this works for some people, it can be unhelpful for others. It's up to you whether you want to set resolutions and make changes, but for those who do, introducing changes in a gradual way can help them to feel more manageable and can also help you to develop helpful habits that will last in the longer term. So the first thing perhaps to think about is what it is that you'd like to introduce or what it is that you'd like to work towards. It may be some of the tips that we've shared in this talk today so far, or asking yourself other questions such as the ones on screen there. So is there something I'd like to do more of? Is there something I'd like to do less of? Is there something I'd like to work towards or something new I'd like to try? So what we're going to talk through here is an example of how to turn kind of a rough goal into something that's helpful for you. So say someone's rough goal is to not feel so tired and stressed. What it might be helpful to do is to narrow down that goal and to make it a little bit more specific, or SMART, which is an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and in a time frame. And narrowing down a goal in this way can help us to work out what practical things that we can do to work towards this goal, and also to make sure that it's something manageable for us to do and we're not setting ourselves up to fail. So this fictional person then might come up with these two SMART goals. So in the next 3 months, I'd like to be getting 8 hours of sleep a night. And in the next 2 months, I'd like to get into the habit of doing 1 self-care activity a day. So now, say we've got those 2 SMART goals, what it can be helpful to do is to break those goals down into even smaller steps. That can help the goal to feel less overwhelming and also gives us opportunities to recognise progress along the way, which can really help with motivation. So for the sleep goal then, the first step may be to identify areas of my routine or environment that may not be helping me to sleep. The second step might be to make any practical changes to the environment. And then the third step may be to gradually make 1 small change to my routine each week. So perhaps increasing the time between eating and drinking and going to bed by 15 minutes the first week and then 30 minutes. Perhaps to try turning the console off 10 minutes earlier and then 20 minutes the next week. Or to try going to sleep 15 minutes earlier and 30 minutes next week, etc. And then for the self-care goal, the first step could look like having a think about what kind of self-care you generally need, then making a list of possible activities, and then trying 1 activity from the list each week. Then you might want to kind of reflect on which activities you find the most helpful for relaxing and de-stressing, and then choose 2 or 3 to try regularly. Perhaps you start off trying them once a week, and then move to trying them twice a week, and then 3 times a week. Another tip from us is to take time to recognise and celebrate progress along the way. If you have 1 less energy drink in the evening, that's brilliant. If you can try the grounding activity once a week, that's great. Another way to look after your well-being is to celebrate the small wins, not only the big ones. So if you need further support with your mental health, we'd encourage you to reach out to someone, whether that's a trusted adult in your family or in your community, or one of the people or organisations on the slide here. So that could include your GP, that's your doctor, the pastoral or the wellbeing team at your school, college or university. Kooth is an organisation that provides online mental health information, tips and support. The Mix provides online information and support for young people's mental health. Young Minds, similarly, as a website that has information and advice specifically about young people's mental health. The Kite Trust is a local organisation providing support for young people around gender and sexuality. Beat provides support around eating problems and eating disorders. And the website Keep Your Head has lots of information and tips around mental health and wellbeing and signposting to both local and national services. And of course, you can always get in touch with us at Centre 33, which brings me on to this slide. So Centre 33 can provide support with a wide range of practical issues and emotional needs, whether that's around mental health, housing, employment, money, sexual health, young carer support, to name a few things. Our frontline support is open Monday to Friday, 12 to 5 p.m. and Saturday 10 to 1. So you can get in touch with us during those times by phone on this number here, by texting or WhatsApping this number here, by emailing hello@centre33.org.uk, or by coming along to one of our drop-ins. We'd suggest that you check out our website, so that's www.centre33.org.uk, to find out the latest about our drop-in locations and opening times. So that's the end of the talk. Thank you all for listening in, and we hope that you find some of these tips helpful.